There are some individuals that are never going to fit in, and there's a group dynamic that has to be maintained. If there's someone who's really a serious outlier, it might not work. Getting divorced sooner rather than later might be good for some folks in the habit we get into when we think, oh, I'm going to fix this. It's got to be me. And sometimes it just isn't me.
Welcome to Testimony Mountain. So glad you're here today, and I'm delighted to have Veronica back with. And we thought today we might look at a topic that I think is important for survivors and non-survivors, and that is self-care, which often gets buried in a lot of things, but is really, really important. So just to start with, Veronica, for people who are new, if you want to share a little bit about how people can.
Sure. Great to be back. Great to see you again. I had a really nice little break in my usual schedule, so I feel a little more refreshed than I did last time, a little less cranky. And I took a break from writing as well, but that's what I do primarily is look into and write about the occult, anything from programming to the people involved, to the history of it, to the locations. And I found that interesting for the past, it's coming up on 5 years. So it'll be 5 years in about a month, a little over a month. And I started writing shortly after I found that I couldn't really hold it all in my head, and I needed to kind of organize it on paper. And I wanted to learn how to do a blog, kind of the mechanics of a blog. So I started a blog, and I thought, nobody's gonna read this. I can do all sorts of fun, creative things with the format, and I can make all kinds of mistakes, and I can just, on the fly learn how to do it. Well, yeah, fool me twice, right? Um, so the readership that I have is very greatly appreciated, and everybody seems to enjoy my investigations into various aspects of the occult. And so I put that out on my main blog, veronicaswift.blog. And then I've also written those are behind a paywall for reasons that you can go back to our last conversation or the one before that and listen to. I think the one before that. Mm-hmm. And I do some free, shorter, same type of thing, but not as in depth on Substack. So I'm veronicaswiftblog.substack.com. And then I have a locals, which is like Patreon. It's a support site and community area that's kind of safe because none of the people that tend to like to come in and harass me and others tend to want to pay to do that. So, so we get a little bit of a break there. So that's veronicaswift.locals.com. Those are my main three areas. You can find me on X and Facebook a little bit, and kind of dotted around social media if you need to contact me. But those are my three main places, and that's what you'll find there. A lot of references, a lot of transcripts, a lot of thoughts on different people and places and concepts and all sorts of stuff in the occult.
That's what I really appreciate about your research and the research tools that you use is, I can ask you a question and, you have some research tools that looks through all of those transcripts and through books and different things that are digital and come up with some answers, which is really, really helpful. And so I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, it's good. I like to answer questions that are from readers and from others because, I have put together kind of a one-of-a-kind database that it goes back a little ways. But what I found is that if you go really far back, the information just isn't there anymore. People pass away, their websites get scrubbed. The information wasn't, captured and stored somewhere. The Wayback Machine only goes back so far, or it didn't capture whatever. So I do feel like I've got a little bit of a unicorn of a database that's been really helpful to look and see who said this or what about this topic, and I like answering those questions, so I'm glad it's useful.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. And so today we want to look at self-care and its importance in survivors and non-survivors. I know that it's something I have to pay attention to, and I don't know if you have some thoughts to jump off on that, but
yeah, I sure have had problems doing that in my own life. I think it's a universal topic, so I've got some current events even in my own life that are going on with that kind of ongoing things. So yeah, let's dive in.
Yeah, and so especially for survivors, we are kind of taught not to pay attention to our own wants or needs because we were programmed to be a slave, basically, to others and do whatever other people wanted. And because it starts early on, just even the awareness, and for many of us, sometimes we're not even aware of our body and even our body needs. And so, hungry, those types of thirsty, those types of things. And so it is a relearning process to go, I don't even know what I need. You know, all I'm focused on is what I'm the task at hand. But like you said, it is a universal issue, but definitely more so for survivors.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. Um, most of us don't have to worry about am I hungry, am I thirsty, those kinds of things. But if you have to pay attention to that and really be aware and focused on that, that's a level of depth that's got to be difficult to work your way out of. I think for me, I have to be cognizant of how tired I am.
Mm.
So am I overworking myself into a state of exhaustion? And how do I define that? And once I get beyond a certain point, it's kind of like it gets deeper without me being aware of it until I feel like I'm just done. And so I have to be cognizant of that. Sleep is a big deal. For me, I know I sleep pretty well, but I can still be exhausted even after a night's
Hmm.
sleep if all I'm doing all day long is working, working, working without any kind of break. That's why that for me is why I sit down sometimes and write because it's a physical break and it's a little bit of a mental break just because I get to focus on something different.
Hmm.
But taking like a real break and going outside and laying on the grass and soaking up the sun, I would love to be able to do that. I think it's hard even for me to go take that kind of quality time out of life. But I think we all need to do it.
We do.
We're so hurried. Do you
Hmm.
feel hurried? I feel like the whole world feels hurried. Like we're hurrying towards some kind of goal that none of us can really describe,
Yeah.
and we have to get there fast, but we don't actually know where we're going. I don't think people did that 100 years ago. I think they sat on the porch in the rocking chair and shelled peas or whatever they
Yeah.
did. And we don't have a shelling peas, necessity in our life at this point.
Hmm.
I wish I did. I wish I had like a giant bowl of peas and a rocking chair on the porch. I,
Definitely.
I wouldn't feel so guilty. I'd have something to do with my hands. I'd kind of be keeping busy, but I didn't have to be like up pulling weeds or changing the bed or whatever. Or maybe I'll start a shelling peas movement.
Yes.
We can all gather on Zoom and sit on our front porches and shell peas and chat.
Oh, well, it was so nice recently. We had some cooler weather in the mornings, and it was delightful. We typically eat breakfast outside just to have a few minutes of my day that I get to see, the sun and all of that. And we actually, as a household, went outside to worship, and it was just amazing. Put our feet in the ground and experience that, and it really does make a difference. I believe actually we can be more efficient when we take the time like that. And it's been really helpful for me with Ken because he's been retired, and so he's a little more laid back anyway than I am. His personality is, and so I'm learning a little bit more to relax and to spend, a few more minutes after breakfast, just enjoying the sunshine and the fresh air and all of those kinds of things. So that's been
Hmm.
a huge benefit for me instead of the hurry, hurry
Yeah.
all the time. So,
Yeah. I had an opportunity recently to do some swimming in a pool, and that was just delightful. I used to love swimming when I was a kid. I think some of us need to go back to and think back to like, what did we love to do when we were a kid
mhm.
and find those in our life again? Like, jump on a trampoline or
Yes.
go swimming or take a bike ride or, go out on a scooter or I don't know, learn how to walk on stilts or I was never good at that. We had those thing. I don't know if you had these when you were a kid. They look like upside down cups and they had ropes on them for handles and you could stand on these upside down cups thing and use the handles to like keep
Oh,
them to the bottom of your feet. And
yes.
so they were like poor man's stilts and you could try to walk around. I was always falling off those. I wasn't very good at it, but it was kind of fun. And I think when we get to be an adult, we forget to be a kid again
Hmm.
and to have that kind of like, I don't have to be good at this, but I enjoy doing it.
Yes.
A lot of my friends got me out of the habit too of doing things that I really enjoyed because as good as I am at some things, I really stink at a lot of other things. But I love doing them. I love fishing. And people who go fishing with me, they're like they like cringe and they look the other way and like hold their hand over their eyes and, so they don't have to watch me doing it. I love doing it. I stink at it. I'm never really going to get any better, I don't think. But I like just the process of going out under the water and rowing out and finding a spot and casting and, making the poor worms suffer or whatever. Yeah, but I know the people that I do it with. I think we should do more of that. I should do more of that. Find things that go back to the things that I love to do, but
Yes.
I just don't. You don't have to be good at it. You just have to kind of go out and do it.
I love that. Recently, it was my granddaughter's third birthday, and we went to a place called Figment Creative Labs here in the area. And oh my goodness, it was an amazing place of just creative play everywhere. And they had fun things like there was a huge tortoise they brought out. And, he was walking around, and there were goats and chickens and a python, not my favorite, but guinea pig and a bunny, and then just oodles of things to do with colors and shapes and water features and all kinds of things. And some of the ladies were like, can we come and have a ladies' day here?
I think that's a great idea. I like the idea of a giant tortoise. That sounds like a lot of fun. Yeah, just do the things that we don't do. This. I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't get together with people and just do crazy kind of weird fun stuff like you would when you were young, when I was younger, or even when I was a young adult. Um, some of my friends would go out and they had they had cars that they didn't mind taking places and like driving them quick and running over bumps and launching us all into the air or whatever it was. I know that's probably not a good idea, but it was fun at the time.
Yeah, it,
Um,
it is interesting how we tend to, get away from those things. Although I would say I was more the sheltered child who did schoolwork all into the evening, and I didn't even talk
mhm.
to friends on the phone very much, and so I was a little more isolated in that. But I think that we can discover things even in as we're older. What brings joy to our lives. So
Yeah. Yeah. I think people I get into especially with neighbors, they're like, yeah, I go out and I mow the lawn for fun. Like, no, I mean, that's better than some tasks at home, but it's not true fun, in
yeah,
my opinion. Yeah. We need to put up I don't know, a badminton net or a volleyball court or something. Yeah. Yeah. So that kind of thing, having fun. I think at least I have lost a lot of that out of my life. I
hmm
have to schedule these things in too, and
yeah,
that's kind of hard to do. But I think
we need
learning
to.
how to schedule fun in or schedule time in, because there's nothing that I'm racing towards that can't wait
Hmm.
a half hour a day. That can't be postponed a half hour. But I get into thinking that what I'm doing is so important that I have to keep at it
Yes.
late into the night or whatnot. Or the dishes, or it's really important to get the dishes done, really, make sure they're done at certain intervals and I can't leave them till later. And there's some truth in that you overwhelm yourself if you don't keep up with stuff, but that extra half hour. And it's hard to have fun with people on Zoom. So
Hmm.
cultivating, I think, local friendships or being near
Yeah.
people is also really important. I think that's probably the most missed part of self-care is that I think a lot of us aren't meeting. I know you have a group of people and you meet with them regularly, but I
Hmm.
don't think a lot of other people really have um, close knit friends
Yeah.
in the area. Many people have gotten away from going to church because
Hmm.
they've either gone New World Order nutty,
Mhm.
or they realize that the faith they're in isn't all it's cracked up to be after they learn a little bit about something like what the Catholic Church is do behind the scenes, or what the Mormon Church does behind the scenes, and so then they lose that cohort of people
Mhm.
to get together with at least once a week. So I don't know. Do you have any thoughts about how to cultivate local friendships? Because I'm pretty bad at that.
I think we have to be intentional about it. And again, I'm not super great at it either. And I think that for survivors, social events with anxiety and different things can trigger, going places can trigger. Playing games can trigger. There's so many things that can trigger. It can feel like it's easier just to isolate and hunker down and just, kind of do what's in front of you. And yet I
Mm.
believe that as part of that healing process, we need to expand out. And so, we do have a lot of, board games and things like that here at the house. Uh, but I think only once that we've had a game night. And, part of it is me, is that some of the grooming sexually was done through games,
Yeah.
you know, you're a little child and they're talking about, let's play this game. And you think, oh, games, and so even the
Mm.
term fun or games can be triggering. But I think to your point, as far as locally, having intention about, reaching out, asking the Lord to show us who out there needs friends also, because I think the need for it has never been greater. And
Yeah.
as a society, we're losing relational skills, and that's the thing with COVID and everything that happened and shuttered us in. Is we lose the relational skills in person. We go more towards more and more screen time and not actually having that, physical touch and interaction.
Yeah.
I am so grateful that, after the divorce, I was kind of forced into community. My initial thought was, I'm going to go hide away someplace. I had this picture of a little white cottage out in the middle of nowhere that I was really excited to go to. But the landlord wouldn't let us out of the lease, and so I had this huge house and a big payment, and it was like, okay, well, maybe if some people came and lived with me, for a while, that would work. I had no idea that God was pushing me into, having a survivor house. But I'm so very, very grateful for it because I needed community.
Mm.
And we didn't do this a lot in the beginning, but we've moved towards it in having regular rhythms as a household of having worship in the morning. And it's just for half an hour. We just play worship songs, and whoever's leading that day just prays. And at the end, we hug everyone.
Mm.
And in the evening, we have a prayer time that we do similarly. And one of the things that survivors need so much is physical touch.
Yeah.
And yet it's the least.
Yeah. 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 That's hard. That's really hard. Well, it's good that you found a way to do that. I have the same tendency to want to find a little place out in the middle of nowhere and sequester myself.
Yes.
But I'm finding that it can almost make you mad to do that. After a while, everything suffers, not just your physical being, but your mental health, and your sense of balance goes
Mhm.
off. So I can't, even though it's a seductive desire at times. I don't recommend it either.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so forcing myself out, even if for me it's just forcing myself to get out and interact with a cashier in
Hmm.
a store, or yeah, things like that. So
Well, and that's the interesting thing with Amazon and stuff. Food delivery, you almost don't have to leave the house. Like for me, because I work out of my house, It was down to, go babysit my granddaughter and, visit Costco every other week or something. And that, would be it. Um,
Costco is not a good place to rejuvenate yourself, if I can just say that.
yes.
Their blue light special, their omnipresent blue lighting,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, the
Yes.
the chaos in there. Yeah, so that could have been crazy making for you for sure.
Yeah. And so it is such a need for survivors to have human touch, and like I said, all of us. But oftentimes we have issues. We have to work that within the household, and sometimes there's times when people, are like, "Air hug, I'm out of here." They're not ready for that
Right? Yeah,
at
yeah,
times, and that's okay too. The other side of it is, and it's the harder side of community, is that when I'm isolated and it's just me and I'm only on, Zoom or something like that, is I can hide all of my stuff.
yeah.
And so the relationships, they can go deep, and we try to do that in our community the best that we can. But I can't see, your messy room, and I can't see when you are not at your best and just got up and flew off the handle or whatever.
Yeah.
And so we really don't grow in character, and we really don't deal with our stuff when we're not in community. And so I can pretend I'm doing really great and I can have lots of knowledge and understanding of things and all of that. But it's when the rubber meets the road, And I I had a conversation yesterday in a group, and I ended up triggering somebody, and it was insensitive remark on my you know half, and so I had to ask forgiveness and repent for my side of that. But just it was a iron sharpening iron moment, where I needed to be confronted with some of my stuff and work through some issues that I had triggered. And so being in community, if we can see it for the treasure that it is, even when it's hard,
Yeah.
I think that's really important. So,
Setting up a community that works, and I think I can see a lot of survivors benefiting from that.
mhm.
Um, but I could also see that they're almost, and correct me if I'm wrong, but does there almost need to be a level of competence that has to be attained first before you can be successful in community? Or can anyone, any survivor at any stage of healing, go in and with the proper support and people around them succeed?
Well, it is a very, very challenging question because I mean, we're a year and a half into this, so we are, or no, actually a year into this, so we are definitely not experts in this at all.
Yeah.
But we've had a few people that were short term in the household, and their chaos, and they also had pets that were a little bit chaotic, and so
Oh, yeah.
it added to things, and so it does make a difference. And in some ways, yes, there needs to be a certain level of stability, or at least that you're working on your stuff in an intentional way. The challenge is the person who's completely out of control and chaotic needs a secure, stable environment so that they can stabilize.
Yeah.
But what I'm finding is as far as like with our household is we have to make sure that we have enough stable people
Yeah.
that we can kind of work things out. And we're kind of at that point right now where, we're all in agreement. We really appreciate everyone who's in the household. And when we talk about adding someone else in, that is part of the discussion, is because it will change the dynamics of the whole group and be challenging for everybody until
Everybody. Yeah.
we work through those issues. but it's one of those things where until someone comes into the community that acts similar to my mom, I don't deal with my mom issues. But now
Right.
I'm confronted with it, and so then it's like, oh, okay, well, this is a safe place to work it out, whereas it might not be, with mom, but
Yeah.
I can work it out in this relationship where we're all working on our issues and we can talk openly, and there's an understanding of, if we do have a meltdown, it's okay. We're learning to stay relational even when there's challenges and all of these kinds of things. But community is not easy for anyone, but especially for survivors. There's a lot of triggers that are there. So
Yeah.
it's challenging.
So the reason I ask that is because I'm, as a non-survivor, I'm dealing with kind of the same situation in my own household,
Mm-hmm.
and what I'm finding is that it doesn't matter how much I desire for a group to work out.
Yeah.
There are some individuals that are never going to fit in,
Yeah.
and for whatever reason, and there's a group dynamic that has to be maintained, even if it's as small of a group as I'm dealing with. But
Mm-hmm.
if there's someone who's really a serious outlier, it might not work, and it might be better to have that individual taken care of in a different way, because if you overstress the rest of the people,
Mm-hmm.
it's a delicate balance.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like balancing on, a circular plate on one of those poles, and then trying to spin the plate and spin all the plates on all the poles. If one person isn't interested in helping out, and they're so far, very far out of the norm, then there's nothing I can do.
Mm-hmm.
And I've tried that. I think probably because as an instructor, we were told it doesn't matter how deficient your students are. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter if they've had any prerequisites or not. No prerequisites. You have to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
You have to bring them up to speed. You have to get them to learn the information. You have to, create this situation where anybody can succeed, with very little or even a lot of back information. I think that was a really bad um, that was a really bad message for me,
Yeah.
because I took it to heart. I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of instructors just say, "Well, we're gonna make it easy on ourselves." I was always, well, I really need. I took it to heart, and I said, "Well, I really need to figure out how to do this."
Yeah.
A lot of other instructors just said, "Well, we're gonna make it work. We'll make it work however it is, but I'm not putting it, overstressing myself." Um, and and I took that and brought it into my own home, and it doesn't always work. It doesn't
Yeah.
always work that everybody has to be in the same household, even if they're all family, even if you're all meaning to make it work. So
Mm-hmm.
anybody, I think, and I say that because I see a lot of people and I'll talk to a lot of survivors, and right now that's the big that's the big thing in everybody's mind is, how do we all create community?
Yeah.
My close friend and blog partner, she said for a long time it would be really nice if we just had 40 acres and we could all put little
Yes.
tiny homes on it,
Yes.
and all just be in the same, in the same area.
Mm-hmm.
And my thought was, yeah, you build a big rec center in the middle of it, and
Mm-hmm.
everybody meets there, and can connect, right?
Yeah.
So it's on a lot of people's minds. So
Yes.
how to make it work, whether it's one situation or another, whether you all are living in one house or whether you're all in close proximity. I think we're all going to wind up needing to make changes in our lives over time
Yeah.
where that happens, where
Yeah.
we have people who are close by. Um, yeah, and not necessarily trying to make it work if it
Yeah.
isn't going to work, no matter how much you might want to. Because I've
Yes.
wanted to make it work,
Yeah.
but sometimes what you want
Doesn't.
isn't what's best for all the people who are there. Yeah,
And we ran into that, with one situation with one guest who was here, and absolutely love her. She's so very precious and dear. But she was younger, wasn't really working on her stuff, and
yeah,
wasn't in our transformations course. And that's one of the things, is because our transformations course is unique and very relationship oriented, and building the way that we operate, and building the relational skills that survivors need is part of that. And she wasn't part of that, and kind of was like, I'm doing my own thing. I know how to do things I'm healing in my own way. It's just me and God. Where there was serious deficits, but she never stayed in one place long enough to work those through in relationship with anyone. And for a long time, partly because I'm a mercy person and I'm not very confrontive, and I'm
Hmm.
learning through this how to be a little bit more assertive in an appropriate way. And so, but finally things came to a head, and she got triggered, and she was the one who took the initiative to leave. And there was a great sigh of relief initially. And, we were like, how come we tolerated this for so long?
Yeah.
But at the same time, there was just this sadness because we love her and want to see her healing and wholeness, but recognize at the point that we were at that time, we couldn't provide that, and she wasn't really open to receiving it.
Yeah.
And so that makes a difference. You can't make everybody, you know, choose what you're doing.
Right. So if you're Slytherin, Hufflepuff isn't going to work for you, right? You've got to be in the right place at the right time. That's good. I think. I think for me, that's also validating. If you can't make it work and you've tried to make it work and it's making everybody's life miserable, then moving on is better than suffering through it and making everyone's lives. You kind of degrade your own life when you're living with that kind of chaos, even if it is just one person creating
Yeah.
that sort of chaos in your life. I know a lot of people who've dealt with parents that create that kind of chaos,
Mm-hmm.
or siblings who create that kind of chaos, or whether it's ex-spouses or whoever. Getting divorced sooner rather than later might be good for some folks, in that, yeah, staying too long is sometimes the habit we get into when
Yep.
we think, oh, I'm going to fix this.
Yeah.
I'm going to make this work. I know I can make this work. It's got to be me. And sometimes it just isn't me. Sometimes it's the other person, and sometimes it's the situation, and sometimes it's the combination of personalities that are there. So that's been a real rough one for me, um, to deal with as well. So you feel really bad if it's not working, but at
Mm-hmm.
the same time, you can't donate your life to someone else if they're not moving in a direction that works for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think one of the other challenges, and it's in the normal population too, absolutely, but it's accentuated in survivors, is they want us polarized either into very rigid control or the chaos.
Mm.
And the rigid control looks a whole lot better. And that's a
Mm.
little bit more where I fit in, just that, I used different words for it because I just thought I was disciplined and very, orderly in that way, not necessarily in some of my living spaces, but overall, being able to do things and be very functional. And then other survivors that are just in that complete chaos, don't have a sense of time or space, and, are just spinning. And those of us who are more functional can look better, but ultimately it's the same issue. And actually, the one who appears more functional actually has had more torture to
Hmm.
stay in that rigidity.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting with a household, some of the things that we've run into is because of being way over here, I don't really need accountability in areas and stuff because I'm so driven to be sure I do everything right. I'm very motivated for that, overly motivated.
Yes.
Whereas, we have someone in our household who needs and wants accountability. And that was kind of a shock for me when they were saying, I want accountability in certain areas that seemed real basic. But again, no blame either way. These are just different ways that, that polarization effect that is so strong in survivors. And so, those of us who are rigid, always on time, or ahead of time, all those kinds of things, and other survivors who can barely show up on time, it's not that those who can't show up on time are bad or worse than us at all. Again, it's the same thing. It's this rigid timepiece that's built inside of me that, I can't be late or I might die.
Yeah.
Or, when you have setups and teams and you're doing stuff internationally, you know, everything is precise down to sometimes the second or fraction of a second. And so, that drive to I've got to stay on task all the time is just as unhealthy as someone who's chaotic and can't get it together, even though mine
Yeah.
looks better, And so
Hmm. Hmm.
it was important for me to recognize that and then how to teach and work in a community where you've got people on both sides. And so you have to speak to both sides, not just one, in that process. So,
I think you're kind of pioneering the entire small community survivor model at this point. And I think I like the idea that you're in, like everyone in your home is in the transformations group as well, because that puts an exterior structure on it
yeah.
that I think I haven't heard of anybody else really doing with a model like that. That's got to help a lot. Are you do you have another transformations group starting? Do they roll out every once in a while? Is that how you're working it?
Yeah, we start about every 6 months. So
Okay.
we've got 5 groups going right now. 3 groups are about ready to end. So we'll start 1 or 2 groups in January.
Okay,
So yeah,
that's good because I know there are a number of people who are looking forward to joining a new group, but I wasn't sure when it rolled out.
yeah. So we're excited about that, and I'm actually working on developing. Um, this is the third time I'm redoing the curriculum, but but I'm evolving. I'm growing, I'm learning, and there's some really fascinating things that we feel the Lord is highlighting, and He is doing this in other groups too. It's not just us, but really honing in on some things that I think are going to be really powerful this time through. So I'm very excited about that.
Excellent. Yeah, the more you learn, the more you know, the more you have to go back to your own stuff and make revisions. That's always the hard part about teaching a class or whatnot. I had a lady reach out to me and she said, I'm really looking for a recommendation for someone to to communicate with. And I thought, well, that's a really good first step for someone to say, hey, do you know anybody that I could network with that
Yeah.
would be and so I asked her, well, what exactly are you looking for? Are you looking for a friend? Are you looking for a support person? Are you looking for, what's your goal in this relationship?
Hmm.
And she basically said someone to be a support, to
Yeah.
kind of keep her on um, just touch base
Yeah.
and be that face front person who can mirror for her whatever she
Hmm.
needs mirrored or suggest whatever might be suggested. So I think that's another excellent way to go in
Yeah.
terms of self-care, is to reach out and say, hey, is there anybody out there willing to help me out in this way, even if it's short term or long term? I think that kind of networking can go a long way
Yeah.
for survivors and non-survivors, because
Hmm.
non-survivors need to there are a lot of people looking for ways to help.
Yeah.
A lot of people. And a lot of people have asked me, how do we help? I think that's one way, is if you mentored,
Hmm.
or however you want to think about it, just decided to be the person that someone can call if
Yeah.
you have that availability, um, to touch base with someone, to keep them checked into reality, to mirror to them maybe a healthy way of getting out of a stuck place they're
Yeah.
in, or help them with resources, etc. There's a lot of different ways that we can help
Yeah.
if we're interested. I know people who have put together places for survivors to crash if they need to for
Hmm.
a short term, and others who, you know, want to do something but don't really know what to do. And I
Yeah.
think that most of us who don't really know what to do, as someone who has a heart to help survivors, that's one thing you can do. If you're amenable to talking on the phone with
Yeah.
someone or just connecting by email or whatnot, that goes a long way in self-care. Just reaching out and saying, I know I'm not 100% all
Hmm.
by myself. I don't know anybody in my area. And can we figure out who to network with? So
Yes. And I really appreciate non-survivors who are willing to help survivors, and just want to let survivors and non-survivors know we have a public group on Saturdays that's just worship and prayer and scripture, doing life together. And that's an easy on ramp for anyone who's wanting more connection. And so it's, survivor friendly. And then even joining transformations groups, even if you're not like a high level, survivor, we it really helps to have a group that is not all complex trauma survivors, and to have people who are more normal traumas, because all of us have some trauma along the way.
yeah,
And so the curriculum is a benefit to, can be a benefit to anybody, whether they're, a more complex survivor or not. But for me, it really, really helps to have people who are not so severely wounded in the groups, to kind of have a balance of people and interactions and support for those who are more traumatized. And so, God's design is the strong and the weak together. And yet in our society and in the church, we tend to segregate people. These are the people that go to AA, and, these are the recovery people over here, and we put the children over here, and we're all segregated, instead of, I believe, the way God intended is that we live together in community. And so, just the encouragement that, if you are not a survivor and you want to help, we would love more non-survivors who were able to be, mentors and supporters of those who are, in groups and so on. So we would always be open to that. So,
yeah, that's good. That's good to know. Because I wasn't aware of that. So
yeah,
I think maybe others might not have been either. Yeah, I think that's very important to have. Well, one thing I spoke with recently with a friend who is a survivor, and we were talking about a post that I had written quite a while ago. But one thing she said is that, even if you're a programmed individual, being around someone who is healthy is dangerous for the program to stay intact.
yeah,
It can start to unravel if a survivor is around someone who's simply healthy and who hasn't. I mean, none of us are all healthy, so that's not what I'm saying. But someone who has not been programmed, you can actually start to just by being there,
hmm,
you can start to unravel the programming from them. And I thought that was tremendous because, boy, just not even if you don't know what to do, even if you don't know
yes,
what to say, even if you don't know how to help, just your mere presence
hmm,
and and being around someone,
yeah,
that's a powerful kind of healing that I wasn't really aware of, and I don't think many other people are either, at least not. At least I had. That's the first time I had heard that from any
yeah,
survivor. It's probably a little hidden gem that the cult doesn't want anybody to know. So let's
yes,
broadcast it out there. You can help heal survivors,
yeah,
just by being you
hmm,
and being present, and speaking with them, or sharing time with them.
definitely. And to me, part of that is attunement, which everyone needs. But attunement is where I see you, I hear you, I'm delighted to be with you, and I understand. Now, we can't
Mm,
understand everything, but just that, I'm here and I'm present. And, I may not understand all of it, but I'm doing my best to be here and be present. And that is, goes way beyond anything. When someone tries to fix us, that's where that always doesn't always go well.
right.
And so just the encouragement is we don't want to be a project. We don't want to be the new, thing. And we don't want to try to be fixed. Yeah, we need healing. But like you said, just the presence is really powerful. Just that attunement. And it's one of the things too that also that we teach in transformations is the 4 levels of, well, there's actually 5 levels of brain pain. One is on the left side, which is the logical thing where my computer's broken and I need somebody who knows how to fix computers to fix it, you know?
Hmm.
And so in that case, yes, I just need somebody to tell me, what I need to do on my keyboard, and that can alleviate the distress. But then on the right side of our brain, we have 4 levels of pain that just giving information does not solve. But attunement does, is part of that process. And so when we understand that, and because I'm a teacher and I love teaching and I love sharing, and so, even in the household, there's times when, I have jumped into teacher mode when what they needed was attunement, and I
Right.
get that kind of deer in the headlights look, and I'm like, oops, you know.
Yeah.
Or, working one on one with people is, I've realized that once they hit overwhelm, they can't hear a word I say.
Yeah.
And so learning to communicate better, if I'm overwhelming them or we've gone too far into a topic, or we just need to sit quietly with true family, or, those types of things. Having Ken in my life has been amazing, because even just, today I got out of a session for me with Joe, my prayer minister, and I was a little wobbly, and he was just like, do you want me to just hold you?
Yeah.
And it just made all the difference. So,
Yeah, physically being held is a wonderful thing. We can also do that emotionally for people, even over the phone.
yeah,
You can just be there. You don't even have to talk. And I think that's a good way. I think that's a good way. Well, it's a good thing to learn when you need self-care, and to accept it when it's offered, or even go as far as to know what you might need and ask for it
yeah,
as well. So that's a level of self-care I think a lot of people, survivor or not, do not have, to know what you need in
yeah,
the moment when you're not doing quite as well, and then to have someone that you can ask for it, and
yeah,
then for someone to be available to provide that for you,
yeah.
which is, yeah, really good.
Because survivors are so isolated. I'm an anomaly. I'm so grateful that I have regular contact, every day. I need a little bit more time off to unplug a little bit. Um, but, my heart breaks for survivors who are isolated and alone. And that is the hard place where I am truly believing for the Lord to begin shifting that more people will become aware. We are a body and we're meant to move forward together. And so we need one another in this process of growth and development. And so I'm really hoping that more and more of, what we call the church or the body of Christ will step into that place of being a refuge for survivors. I am believing for a mass exodus from the cult system. I don't know how or when, but I feel the shaking and the rumbling in the system, and that there is, I believe, a collapse coming, and there will be lots of survivors who need help. And I want to, be part of those who are being prepared to have a place of refuge for them. So,
Yeah, excellent, excellent. We need more of that, and I think there are a lot of non-survivors who have, having heard some of the things that are new to them about the occult, some of the things that survivors have been through, and not even hearing the depth of the horrors. It's horrible enough for them to say, "What on earth can I do?
yeah,
What on earth can I do?" And that's surely something that almost anyone can do. Is, you know, we all had a pen pal when we were a kid at one point or another, and picking a pen pal as an adult, or
mm-hmm.
picking someone you can just text every once in a while,
Yeah,
or pick up the phone and actually hear someone's voice. I think that's a gift.
it
And
is.
yeah,
It's so good. So good.
I think there are a lot of people who would definitely be willing to do that. So now the task for
Mm-hmm.
God is just to figure out how that all happens and
Yeah,
fits together.
so good. So good.
Hmm.
All right. Anything else you want to add for today, or?
No, I think it's just really important for all of us. I think it's super complicated for survivors, and it's hard to force yourself to do the healthy things sometimes because it comes with fear, it comes with instability, it comes with triggering, it comes with all sorts of things that most of us don't have to deal with.
Yeah.
But I don't know how we're going to bring everyone together back into society unless we all venture into our non-comfort zone,
Yeah.
whether that's non-survivors, listening to and appreciating what you all have been through, even if we can't listen to the worst of the worst. Just a little bit helps. Being heard, being seen, and yeah, reaching out.
That is awesome. And I'm so grateful for the work that you do, Veronica, and getting the word out there and helping non survivors to understand a little bit better of kind of the things that we face and what we go through. So thank you.
You're welcome. All of you are welcome. Everyone hearing, you're all welcome. You hear that? It's a good thing. And I'm happy to do it. Very happy to do it.
Thank you. All right, and thank you for watching Testimony Mountain, and just encourage you to share, subscribe, share this with those who may need it, and we'll see you next time on Testimony Mountain.